Hello and welcome to Guys Dealings with Feelings, the podcast dedicated to addressing men's mental health issues and providing practical solutions. As always, I'm joined by my friend Jason, who through years of professional and personal experiences, including trauma and recovery, as well as his over 18 years of being a licensed therapist, and of course, my journey profoundly shaped by the tragic loss of my son. We're here talking, discussing, sharing what we've learned, continue to learn along the way in this journey that we're on in hopes that we can help somebody who is searching. If you like the podcast, do all the things, click all the buttons, share it, like it, follow us. What's up, brother?
Hey, man.
So
Howdy.
today, I think last week we wrapped up with how we box ourselves in, how we will get boxed in life, and it's kind of like it says. I think we're all familiar with being inside of a box. We don't want to be in a box. We want to think we're free. I think naturally as humans, we want to be free and not have confines. That's why we're constantly pushing the envelope as a species. Think space, just always trying to find we don't want any edges, we don't have borders. But here we sit boxed in, and fear is a major driver of that. Fear of the unknown, which a lot of fear is. It's I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know how is tomorrow going to turn out. Oh my God, I made these bad decisions, and now I've got this situation or circumstances, or something happened, an accident occurred, and now here I am, my son's passed away, and I'm in this uh seriously, I guess, bad situation, whatever you want to call it. I'm just in that circumstance and situation, and here I got to deal with it. And then we start to tell this story or tale or whatever it is. I think the language you hear a lot is our story. We can tell our own story and this, that, and the other. And I used to get angry. Oh, what the hell are you talking about? You can't just tell your story. And you can tell what we tell ourselves, what we tell others. We speak into reality and existence. Not, I don't close my eyes and say I'm going to be a millionaire and then poof, $1 million shows up. But if I know that I'm directing my body, my mind, everything towards a goal, if it's money, whatever, then I will. Where focus is, where focus goes, energy flows, or whatever the saying is, and that really is true. And the flip side to that, and where I think the majority of us have lived a long time, is in the negative part of this. So especially when someone feels stuck, they hear someone say manifestation, and they're, what the fuck are you talking about,
Negative side
manifestation?
of what? What do you mean by that?
So if you find yourself in a negative spot in life,
Oh,
uh,
okay, I got you, I
and
got you.
you're down and out,
Yeah.
you feel stuck in your circumstances, you're not thriving, etc. And you hear this manifestation stuff, and you think, what a crock of shit this is. You can't just think something and become true. But to that individual, at first I say I empathize completely through experience, and second, I found myself, I thought myself a victim of circumstances many a time. Um, and I could have, I think anybody could look at a situation and think, God, that really sucks. Like for that dude, but it doesn't matter. None of that's true. And as long as I think that mentality and I have that mentality, that's how it will be. I will be that way. And the individual that thinks you can't manifest um, life, I implore you to look in the mirror. And if you're constantly thinking about how bad things are and how bad they're going to be and how bad they continue to be, you're going to bring that to reality. You're going to make that continue to be the case. And so Jason and I will dive in a little bit deeper into all that. We talked about the last time about culture boxing us in. And so now how we take that and kind of refine it down into our own personal story and our own personal, it's Aaron Gray's box with his cultural blanket all on top of it.
Yeah, what to do? Uh,
Yeah.
man, and uh, when you were talking, I started thinking about, um, I guess, a more specific way to talk about, the kind of fear that, I'm specifically talking about. Not like I'm walking down a trail and there's a rattlesnake, and so there's some sort of reaction in my system, right? That's pretty I want that to be the case, you know? Uh, it seems pretty instinctual, right? Uh,
And scary.
yeah, 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 man. Yeah, yeah, I have a story about, like, rattlesnakes too, man, that, on a trail called Rattlesnake Trail. I don't know why you'd go down that trail, but I did. But anyway, I digress. I'm talking about these, like, limitations that we imagine. Do you know what I mean? And then, and I'll just say this too, right? I mean, tied into culture, because we've been conditioned out of feeling is a really simple way to say it, to be honest. And having clarity around feeling, having clarity around what thought actually is, right? We don't know how often fear is actually a part of our experience. We're not really aware of that. Generally, we have to do a little bit of work to become more familiar with that. That can be sort of challenging for a lot of different reasons, right? But so that's what I'm interested in, that pervasive sense of, I don't know, not enough or limits or, a can'ts, right? Uh, yeah, that's what I'm focused on. Right? Does that make sense? Just like to make that
It does.
distinction?
It does. I would like for you to expand on the inability to identify what it is, I guess.
Yeah.
I understand what you're saying, but for clarity's sake, explain to us how we confuse what it is that's actually happening in it, and then how that throws us off.
Yeah. Man, I mean, it's a big question, right? But I mean, I think everybody can relate to having a reaction and then finding out, uh, what you were reacting to was not real. Can you find that in your own experience?
I think that I find a yes, I can find that, and
Okay.
I can also find where I the reaction that I felt was not it didn't link up, I guess is the best way to say it. Like it came out angry and I was really embarrassed, or my feelings were hurt, or I was sad, or I like you say I was scared.
Yeah, it was expressed, but not in the most skillful way. That's how I like to think of it. It's not there's no
Sure,
judgment
and
or
no
anything about
judgment. Right,
for
right.
any of us, and hopefully, I mean, it's actually a really essential ingredient. Right? It's challenging. It's humbling when you start to really see how you misperceive things, you know? It's a challenging thing. Uh, so how do we, you know, what does that mean, right? Like you're describing, well, there was something happening in me and it wanted something, right? Does that make sense? It wanted to communicate something, right? Or whatnot. And just came out wonky. Uh well, what comes to mind when you think about so like how what comes to mind when you think about how that happens?
So I think that my inability, and this has been a huge part of my journey, is the ability to feel, experience, properly identify emotions, and then that helps me with processing them. So when I say processing them, you and I talk about it as feeling them and then letting them go. And then I don't have to live with them for the rest of eternity
Yeah.
because I've done that. And so what I've worked really hard on is and it was easier for me because everything seemed to turn to anger from the time I was young. And when I say anger, I've never been arrested for any type of assault or going after anybody. It's just inside. I just get so impatient, and there's no room for any rationale. And of course, that we know scientifically what's happening. I'm in my amygdala, and I'm not thinking properly at that point. But so what I can do now is if I begin to get angry, or I've been doing this for years now. But if I begin to get angry, then I stop and say, I'm not angry. I'm not angry. It has to be something besides anger. I've had enough anger already in life. This is something besides that. What is it? Am I afraid? Am I scared? Is it what is it? And then I'm able to properly see what I'm having a reaction to. I'm not necessarily saying the reaction, like to your point of judgment, that I'm wrong to react a certain way. I mean, I need to react to other human beings in a specific way, which obviously I strive hard to do. But internally, if I feel myself getting upset, what's going on? What what is triggering me to be this way? What is it that I'm feeling? You and I've had discussions properly feeling and just having the feeling itself. What is it? Why is it? Identify with it. And then I'm able to see, oh, it's this. And that's why I harp so much about my inner child work, is because so many of the times I find that it's just little me got his feelings hurt a lot of times, or little me scared. Something's going to happen. I'm going to get abandoned. Somebody's going to leave. I'm going to be left to myself. I'm not going to have needs satisfied, etc. This is happening. When I slow down and I can put that together, I experience it. I'm like, oh, okay, everything's okay. Um, but for so long, it was just boom, react, then whatever the fuck happens. And then I'm left to deal with that after so I lose it. I say something to somebody that I shouldn't say, or I say something in a way I shouldn't say it, or, you're at work and things are said, whatever. Then you got to live with that. And then you're looking at yourself, why the fuck did I do that? I just got this. No. So
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
all that.
yeah, 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 yeah. And yeah, I love that. And what I so and what I try to help people how yeah, exact know for themselves, right, what we're describing. And so but in my experience took me even a step further, to be honest, man, and because it was so horrible for me. Uh uh and it took me to the place where I asked a question like, what is even a feeling? Right. So but we don't have to go there, but think about how you're describing it, it's like, "I felt anger." Well, you don't feel words, right?
Mhm.
So, it was some dynamic force in your system, right? A charge, a dynamic force, it's a good way to imagine it, right? Something pushing, right?
Yep.
And honestly, the way that it works, here's a really simple way to say it. If you have the capacity to stay conscious and actually just kind of relax as the energy presents itself, as the reaction happens, you can actually see more subtle information. So you can actually see, like you described, what actually is going on. And so you noticed different thoughts that might be more applicable to what was happening. Does that make sense?
Yeah, try to more accurately pinpoint what is
And a really
happening.
simple way to say that what was happening in the middle of that storm was essentially a breath, like a relaxing, like a whoa, 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 right? It's an easy way to say it. Um, and if you think about emotions or energy like colors, uh, a good way to look at it is that because of our past and living and just because of the world, really, I mean, because of the whole nature of the world, we are more familiar with some colors and less familiar with other colors. Meaning, um, we can stay conscious and relax and curious when they occur. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
So, right. So, often in the process for us, we begin to become more familiar with like anger, right? You know, because it doesn't feel good to to let that energy spill out into the world in that way. Uh, but that's often the first one we start to really notice, And then there's just other colors we're not familiar with. Shame is one we're not super familiar with, and so then when it activates, what happens is we focus more on the memories that it activates and the ideas and thoughts that it activates. Does that make sense? So we're not able to just breathe and feel the energy in the body without our consciousness, our awareness zapping up into the story, into the memory. It's a I guess it's yeah, it's a conceptually easy way to think about it. Uh,
And
but
what
all this has to be directly experienced to be understood, you know?
Sure, and does that not lend itself to what you just said? And to repeat it, is that we don't understand, for lack of being taught, we'll just say that, a certain color slash feeling. We
Yeah,
just
yeah,
don't
yeah.
understand. We don't understand this mustard colored orange. We don't get it. And so, because of that, we directly link when we have that feeling to the memory or thought that went with it versus just feeling it. Is that Am
Yeah,
I
yeah,
saying that right?
well, it's much more fundamental than that. We are, uh, radically unaware of the dynamics in our system and our relationship with the world that we live in. I mean, we're not familiar with the energetics of our system. We it, but and other cultures are. I mean, you can go all over the world, and there are people that for hundreds and thousands of years have understood things about the energetics of the human system. So the meridians, and there are different names for things, but um, we have a digestive system, a circulatory system, a hormonal system, a nervous system, right?
Mm,
And um, I mean, that's a completely active nuclear system, right? That produces energy and that receives information from the environment, right? You know?
mhm.
And and so we're just not we're not culturally familiar with the reality of energy and its flowing through our system and uh, how that affects the way we relate to everything, right? You started it out with the fear of the unknown in a box, okay? Uh, I like to think of it this way: the way that most of our lives have gone have made us afraid of the dynamics in our body, the feelings, the energies. We're not familiar with it. Do you understand what I mean? The way we've been taught is like it's hard to. I mean, you have to get into some strange territory, maybe. I guess you don't have to, but we just it appears to us that we live in a solid world and everything is solid, and well, that's just not reality. And um, so for us, because we weren't given any information around the energetics of our system and how that relates to the information we're apparently receiving from the environment, right? And how that relates to our information and how we relate to ourself and to other people, like the energetics in our system, how our system and energy's flowing and um uh because all of our attention is on the thinking domain. I mean, like literally. So, and it doesn't appear that way to us, but like a flashlight. I know I'm repeating, but it bears repeating, over and over because it's what's happening. Like a flashlight, our attention is always pointed into the mental domain, always, right? And so the way we talk about it is we lack presence, right? It's like, okay. But just think of it this way. As we begin the process of letting go of our addiction to paying attention to our thinking all the time, right? Believing it, like figuring it out, solving the problem, you know? Uh, as we do that, what we're doing is stepping into the unknown. We're stepping into just a deeper dimension of our life that we didn't even oftentimes we don't even know how limited our experience is as human beings. We because most of our experience is a form of resisting feeling it.
Right. So the connection I was going to make was, isn't this so the inability for, again, no judgment, who cares how you got there, but the inability to be aware of an emotion. So you link it back to a feeling, or you link it back to the thought, experience, whatever that drove it. And then as we get further and further from that circumstance, the we use shame was the first example you give, that we couldn't identify with. The unidentified emotion drives the actual memory. And so we all know when we have an experience that there's a bunch going on, but one part of it will stand out, whether it was when Uncle so and so came in and said something about such and such politician, it pissed you off. All of your Thanksgiving, if you two get into an argument, all of your Thanksgiving will be remembered about the experience you had with Uncle so and so, and how, whatever, if you're passionate about that shit, then how ignorant he is because he thinks that way. And so the further you get away, you'll think of that the anger or that emotion that got you to that point will drive that memory. And so Thanksgiving 2025 will be remembered, and that part of it will grow. So it was, the fight will be bigger, the feelings you had will be stronger, the animosity towards Uncle so and so will grow. You won't remember that it was, how great the pie was. You won't remember the how funny it was when Aunt so and so slipped, or when the Cowboys lost again. Whatever. Like, you won't remember any of that. You'll remember the argument and the anger and the blah 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 that came with Uncle so and so. And so that, with like the fish story, that will grow as you get further and further from that experience. And then, to your point that you just made, now we're going to be more sensitive to whatever it was that was the driver in that portion of Thanksgiving 2025. Not the whole day, just this portion, which has now been inflated into this make-believe story. So it's not real. So we're getting away from the solid that you described we think we're experiencing. And now we're into a little less solidity. And I understand you were talking at a deeper level, but I'm just talking about in things that everyday
It's
people
good
that are
to
listening to
yeah.
this can experience. They haven't gone deep on the dive, just this everyday. And that's what's driving that past thing, which will affect your future things. And you're not experiencing right now. In a moment in Thanksgiving, when we start to argue, we stop and think, listen, Uncle so and so just has a different reality than me. He's had different circumstances. He sees the world differently than I do. I love the Uncle so and so. Let's go have pie and pick Aunt so and so off the ground. Like, and then, and so we're able to diffuse and move forward. But
Yeah.
if we don't, then we let these emotions drive. They drive. We don't know what they are, but then they drive our experience. And then that experience is the memory that will then drive future experiences based on the beliefs that they create. And then
Yeah,
here we are, the box begins
they
to
drive
form.
our perception of reality.
Right. And then our box begins to form on these false pretenses that you just said. And so if you want to dive in deeper on that and how or why it is, uh,
Okay, well, let's take you like, you're sitting on the couch right now, right? Okay. In this very moment. Alright. And I'm speaking to the consciousness in there, the consciousness that actually experiences the energy and experiences the thoughts, okay? So, right now, sitting on the couch, if that memory was present, okay, and with your attention, if you attended to it, if you paid attention to it, does that make sense what I'm saying?
You talking about a past memory? Deal with
Yeah,
it. Okay.
but it's not it's right now, it's not
Deal with right now. Okay.
no, I'm saying it no, but I mean, uh,
Then
when
no,
is
I
the
don't know.
past memory happening?
Oh, well,
But hold on, don't say, but let's just
yeah,
when is the past memory happening? Right now, right? So, when the memory is happening, which is a thought, an idea, an image in the mind, right? Okay. We have the ability to not pay attention to it, not in a way that's ignoring it or like denying it, but we have the ability to not allow our focus to go up in that direction, our attention, and we have the ability to keep it a way of talking about it is to keep it down in the body where the feeling's actually occurring, okay? So, and if we do that in a non-judgmental way, just actually, just allow the sensation to be a part of our experience. Does it make sense how I'm saying that?
mhm.
The the memory, it would just fade off into nothing. It would just fade off into it would just release it. Does that make sense? And but so essentially we're releasing our attention from the memory and putting it on the feeling. Okay, but we have to have a familiarity with what that means, how that works. And we can learn to do that on more subtle and subtle and subtle and subtle and subtle levels, really. Uh, you know, and being able to do that allows us to start to get at things that are actually fairly consistent parts of our experience that we talk about a lot, but don't really know what they are, like boredom, you know, daydreaming, things like that. Not being able to be present. I mean, it allows us to understand why not able to just be more present in our life. So it's just a matter of capacity. It's a matter of familiarity, really,
Mhm.
is really what it's a matter of. You know, you could say to, my, I guess, goal or intention in some ways is to normalize what it means to heal. Normalize the word trauma. I mean, they're all just words, man,
Sure.
right? So just normalizing what it means to heal. And a really simple way of talking about it is to become more familiar with the dimension of feeling. It's just literally a lack of familiarity that continues to make us repress and avoid and distract, you know, and over intellectualize and conceptualize. And you know what I mean?
Yeah, sure.
Uh, it is literally just a lack of familiarity. And all that is contained in that area, that dimension of our life, is more information,
Mhm.
more clarity, more peace, better relationships, better communication skills, right? More discipline, or at least more familiarity with why it's difficult to be consistent. And then you are likely not beating yourself up about it or anyway. Um so
Yeah.
yeah, it's a lack of familiarity.
Yeah, I think understanding and as men, men are from Mars or whatever, that we need to understand. We need to know how it works. I don't know why. I'm not trying to get into the why we need to know how it works, but we as men need to know how it works. And once we have an understanding, to your point, we're like, oh, okay. Well, if that's all it is, that's not going to make me a wuss. That's not gonna cripple me, that's not gonna make me a beta male or whatever this bullshit is that's being sold on TV, and I get, like, there is this I didn't realize this was happening because it's so far from my orbit, but I get it in the nice guy stuff and how, guys will just become doormats and be getting running over. Well, obviously that's not okay. And neither is it for someone to be so verbose and loud and bullying and that's not okay either. We need to be well-rounded, balanced, aware creatures. And if your uh, balanced, aware self, would like to share that with others, then you do. And if that's not you, then you don't. You're no less or more of a man. Either direction, you're not going to be run over either. Once you understand these things, you're not going to let somebody manhandle that which you understand. You're not going to do it. And you, because you're aware, you've said it in the past. I said, well, what do you tell a person that says, I can't remember what it was? And you said, I wouldn't be talking to that person. And the idea is once you're aware that this individual is not interested in what it is that you have to say, you say, hey, man, it's good meeting you.
Yeah,
Good
no,
luck
it's
to
no
you. You
offense or
move on. Yeah,
anything.
there's no "Fuck you, man, you
Exactly,
don't
yeah,
get it because 'cause you're an idiot," but
yeah.
no, that is not
We're
what's
just in
happening.
different places as human
Places
beings. It's not,
places, yeah.
yeah, but I don't but what doesn't happen is, at least I'm more familiar with that human being not becoming a caricature in my mind. I'm very intentional about not adding to the divisiveness that exists in the world, you know? But, let me go back to something that you said. Let me try to flesh out what it's gonna be maybe, like, a little poetic, but, uh, there's a way if you really understand what the process is all about, um, it's the greatest hero's journey that you could ever make. Every every tale of a hero chasing the dragon, chasing down, going on an odyssey, right? That finds a dragon and faces the dragon and finds gold, you know? Uh, and then in the stories, they take the gold back to their community and share the wealth, at least in maybe the stories many of us are attracted to. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Um, so actually, it fits right in line with our sense of masculinity and duty and honor and protectiveness and right? It's just that we can have an arrogance, um, which is just straight up cultural conditioning. We don't even know it,
Mhm.
right? Because it's in that direction, in that deeper direction, uh, that is not for the faint of hearts. And anybody that's done it and continues to do it, continues to live that way of life, the way of the heart, really what it is, right? They
Mhm.
know it's not for the faint of hearts. You know what I mean?
Right.
Right? And so it's actually the opposite, isn't it? It's the opposite. Like, but again, it speaks right to the heart of who we are because it takes courage, willingness to get to know yourself, get to know your experience,
Sure.
you know?
But the rewards are, uh
Immeasurable.
right, and it's not some secret. I mean, it's just you are because you're really in tune and you're truly experiencing what is happening, it changes everything. And it's hard to understand, I think, until you begin to do it, and then you just feel the weight, I guess, is a good way to say it. There's a weight lifted. There's not so much pressure.
Which is
Um,
actually really avoidance.
those
So
things
we
are.
we relax our habits of avoidance. It's a good way of thinking about it, isn't it? Right? Because, during the process of our quote unquote healing, you're feeling things. You actually start to feel things, in a way that you never have. And it's sort of like learning a new language.
Right. And
Yeah.
it's and you just and but you can feel more comfortable just being uncomfortable. You can feel more comfortable knowing that you don't know. If it is something that you deem necessary to know, then you know that you can go learn it.
Yeah,
Um, the what is what's so it gives me a sense of urgency, especially in people that I love, is to see them caught in the, for lack of a better term, caught in the matrix to the point that it's going to hit. Like, the time is going to come, whether it's the actual deathbed or a couple years before it happens, and go, oh, fuck. That's it. The experience is over. And what we're trying to get at is, again, this is not something that makes that wussifies a manly man. It is a human thing, but what we're trying to do is get it to where you can understand it, because as men, that helps us with processing. Once we understand it, then we can get on board with it. And when you do this, uh, the sooner you can really do it, the more experiences you'll have, the longer life you'll have
yeah.
living this way. And it's kind of like when you didn't have a car and now you got a car, it changed your fucking life. Like, the whole fucking world changed. And I know today kids aren't that way, but when we were kids, we're Gen Xers.
And you
When
had to
we were,
learn how to drive.
man, when you were a kid, bro, and you got your car, like, your
You're
world was
gone.
changed. It
Yeah,
fucking
gone.
changed.
Yeah.
And it opened up. There
Can
was
I
so much more available. And that's what
Yeah.
happens here.
Man, I love that you brought I actually have them I actually wrote down the matrix on my piece of paper right here. And what we're talking about is actually what does that mean? What are we referring to when we say that? Why do we use that language? What are we talking about? Why were so many people attracted to that movie, right? Here's what I would say, because it's possible for everybody. It's actually possible to wake up and have clarity around their true self, the outside the limitations of what appears to be this little lifetime for them. It's a literal possibility for human beings, but often in our culture, people don't find themselves in spaces that are using language like awakening, right? Um, it's not super common, but this is exactly what you could describe the matrix as this: simply experiencing life in a limited way through the lens of the mind, through what we think is happening. That's the matrix. It gives us this sense of separation, like I'm here, the world's out there, I'm this different thing, the world's that thing, right?
Mhm.
Um, but if you really I mean, what's the world made of? What am I made of?
Yeah, we go
Uh,
back to the emotions driving the thoughts, which is driving our reality, and it's not even real,
that's what I
that
mean.
whole
So
thing.
so you could essentially say that if I'm on this planet and, I am actually a bioelectric magnetic being walking around, and the flow of energy in my system, meaning, let me say it just more simply, my awareness of my feelings and, and what's happening in my system uh, is me being aware of energy. And since I'm in a universe where that's what it's made of, if I'm in touch with that within my own conscious experience, okay, then I'm in touch with it. You see what I'm saying? Because in actuality, our skin's not really a barrier. The energy's coming in and flowing out and flowing through. Do you see what I'm trying to say? So, but when we're stuck in our mind and always focused on our thinking, we're not feeling just the flow of life, really. We're actually the feelings that we experience mostly are because of our misinterpretations of always experiencing life through the mind and what we think is happening. Does that make sense?
Yeah, when
So
it's formed with the beliefs that were created during these emotional things that we didn't understand what was happening.
yes, and, again, for us, even that word, like a belief, it's just a word, like, how do these things play out in our life, right? Well, it's having the feeling, not being aware of it, and then it making me act out.
It
That's an
it
example
Yeah,
of
and it creates new
disharmony.
circumstances
Yeah,
and things that then create repeated negative circumstance, and around and around you go in your matrix that you are creating
yeah,
while you bitch about people telling you that they're able to
yeah,
manifest
yeah,
their
yeah, yeah,
positive
yeah, yeah,
lives.
yeah, yeah, and think of it this way, another one of the things that happens because all our attention is up here in the thinking, we start to really focus on our likes and dislikes, and that sort of starts to give us this sense of identity. But actually they're arbitrary,
They're all
okay?
just happening for us, just
Right,
inside of
they're
us.
just arbitrary ideas, and the
Yeah.
thing about it is when you start to really condense things down for a human and condense it down and condense it down and condense it down and condense it down, the experience just becomes more universal and more universal and more universal. You see what I'm saying? It's not like conceptual in a way. Do you see what I'm trying to say? We're just here having these experiences,
The
you know?
complexities are all in your head. Is what
Yes.
you just said. Yeah.
Yes.
You build up all this shit and you just build it. It's just in you that you built it up. And we're taught a lot of it. We're taught to build a lot of it up, to create these barriers, to create these boxes, to bind us with this shit. All of that, there's exterior forces at play that train us how to do it. And then we perfect it. And to your point, we think we're solving something.
Yeah,
Doing
that's a
all this
great
thinking.
point.
I'm
Yeah,
doing all this
yeah.
thinking because I'm going to solve it.
Well, that's and this is all happening. I know this sounds it sounds so it likely sounds so unfamiliar to people, but again, but it's not mystical. It's not
Yeah. No, no woo
this
woo.
is
Yeah.
very natural for us. We are bioelectrical it's a natural thing, right? Um uh yeah, so what is the first thing we're trying to do again is we're just trying to sit down and relax and allow new information to come in. Stop paying so much attention to our thinking. And like you said, it don't it might make promises. This is good. Who knows what's going to be uh what we're going to see, right? But here's what happens, again, when if this is even known in the deeper processes of meditation, okay? Uh there's this moment where you're letting go of that last thought, attending to it, and you're stepping out into silence. Space is a way of talking about it, right? You know what I mean? And for us, is especially with our those of us that have grown up in the West, that is literally a way. It's the fear of the unknown, right? We don't. It's unfamiliar to us to not always be attending to our thinking, attending to these separate identities running around and blah, blah, blah. But anyway, that attending to our thinking, right? And so it's a really deep part of the process. Uh and all this is happening on an energetic level. We're actually with our attention, we're attending to energies that we just can't we're attending to things that we can't not attend to. So we can't stop attending to our thinking, right? You take ADHD, a way to talk about it is an inability to filter out what a person experiences as relevant in any given moment. Everything's relevant. Everything receives attention. That makes sense?
Yeah, sure. And I think a way that to kind of put a summary or a bow on it, obviously that when we're bound by all this box that we've created, a way to summarize this is, if you're covered in mud dirt, grime, whatever it is, and you take a shower, how you've washed all that away and you've kind of just you don't have to experience that anymore. It's a relief. Like when you're able to set the past and the future down and just sit here right now and you can take off all your goggles, your belief goggles and all that shit that
Yeah.
we've built up and we're working on our thoughts and just set all that down. It's like a breath of fresh air. It's like a float
It's a
tank.
relief. It's
Yeah,
relaxing.
you just get to relax. Yeah, and that's the peace of mind that we all seek,
Yeah.
and we're constantly driving it
And that's
into.
why I'm consistently saying, actually, what's happening is we're relaxing our attention on the mental sphere and thinking. That's what's actually happening. But it doesn't appear that way to us. Does that make sense? You have to really observe and pay attention with your eyes closed, right? So we're paying attention to it in a way we don't normally pay attention. Is it,
Yep.
you know what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah.
But then you start to see it.
Yeah, well, the more the training, so you go through your training, now you can recognize it and you start to feel it as well.
Yeah,
You can,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
this is relaxing. When I jump right back into thought, it's fucking stressful.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
I'm
you
creating
see
all
it.
this shit. Yeah, now you see, God
But
damn,
and
why have
think
I
about
put
that,
myself
your
in this
attention.
box?
You said,
Yeah.
I jumped back into thought," but really it's really attention. So
That's it. Yeah.
so you allowed
Right.
your attention to go back into thought. And then you consciously, your consciousness, you you noticed where your flashlight of attention was, and you relaxed it. You actually then relaxed it into taking in more. I know this sounds paradoxical, but you relaxed it into taking in more information.
Right.
Does that make sense what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, yeah,
And with
because when you
with
go
the
to the
ability,
thought, it's like it brings things down to a smaller circle. Yeah, we're like really honed in. Well, what is that? What is that? What is that? Like a manager.
yeah. Yeah. And so that's the goal. I think, we're all striving for, and it's something I, I don't know how I'll always work on it. Always work towards what I see as my goal of being, the happiest, the most, enjoying myself the most of the time.
I like to think of it as free,
Yeah, which is
free
freedom.
or
Yeah,
free
free
or
of all that, all,
reactivity,
yeah, and all that I bound myself with leading up to this point.
limitations.
Yeah, fear.
Yeah,
Yeah, so all that.
but we got to be able to feel to know
Sure.
when fear
It's
is
a long
active.
yeah, I
Yeah,
mean, I the years and years I've got into this shit, and I'm just getting
yeah.
started.
Takes it's not for
It
the faint
takes
of
a long
heart.
ass, and that's what I'm saying. It's so upsetting, with those that I see that,
Yeah,
they're
it's
getting up,
hard.
drinking the coffee, going to work, working all day long into the night, going home, eating food, laying down and going to bed, getting up, doing it
It's
again.
hard, brother. Yeah,
It's so fucking hard.
yeah. It
So,
doesn't have to
anyway,
be that way.
yeah. We sure appreciate you listening and give us your time. We know it's your most valuable asset. Until next time, we hope you have an awesome day. Oh.